Hypatia of Alexandria. Philosophy in a time of turmoil. Imagine being a brilliant philosopher, astronomer, and mathematician in a world teetering on the edge of chaos. That was the life of Hypatia of Alexandria. She wasn't just a woman in a man's world. She was a woman in a dying world. The glorious age of classical antiquity was giving way to the often brutal and dogmatic era of early Christianity. In this intellectual and social maelstrom, Hypatia was a beacon of light, a defender of reason, and a symbol of a fading, more tolerant past. Alexandria in the 4th and 5th centuries was a city of unparalleled intellectual ferment. It was the last great center of pagan learning, a place where philosophers, scientists, and scholars from all over the world gathered to exchange ideas. And in the middle of this bustling intellectual hub was Hypatia, the head of the Neoplatonic school, a position of immense prestige and power. She wasn't a reclusive scholar hiding in an ivory tower. Hypatia was a public figure, a respected teacher, who lectured on the philosophies of Plato and Aristotle to a diverse audience of Christians, pagans, and Jews. She was known for her eloquence, her profound wisdom, and her ability to make complex mathematical and philosophical concepts understandable. She was the ancient world's most sought-after professor, the kind of teacher who could fill an auditorium with her charisma and intellectual fire. But her prominence came at a price. As the Christian population of Alexandria grew and became more politically powerful, the tolerance of the past began to wane. The new Christian bishop, Cyril, was a fierce dogmatist who saw pagan philosophy as a threat to Christian orthodoxy. Hypatia, with her powerful intellect and her public following, became a symbol of everything he opposed. She was a woman of reason in a time of faith, a representative of a dying intellectual tradition in a time of radical change. Her story isn't just about a brilliant woman. It's about the clash of two worlds and the tragic consequences that sometimes follow. The last pagan philosopher, Hypatia's intellectual legacy. In the grand tapestry of philosophical history, Hypatia is often remembered less for what she taught and more for how she died. But to focus solely on her tragic end is to miss the vibrant, profound intellectual legacy she left behind. She was, in many ways, the last great voice of classical pagan philosophy, a bridge between the golden age of Greek thought and the new Christian-dominated world. Hypatia was a Neoplatonist, a follower of a philosophical tradition that sought to synthesize the ideas of Plato with a more mystical religious outlook. She believed that the universe was a rational, ordered cosmos, and that human reason could be used to understand its divine principles. Her philosophy was not just an academic exercise. It was a way of life, a path to spiritual enlightenment through intellectual contemplation. Her intellectual legacy, however, is a bit of a ghost story. None of her own writings have survived. We know about her work through the letters of her students, particularly Synesius of Cyrene, a Christian who remained devoted to her until the end. We know that she wrote commentaries on the works of the mathematician Diophantus and the astronomer Ptolemy, and that she taught a rigorous curriculum of mathematics, logic, and astronomy. She wasn't just a teacher of old ideas. She was a creative thinker who pushed the boundaries of existing knowledge. Hypatia's true intellectual legacy lies in her role as a symbol. She represents the value of reason, the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake, and the importance of intellectual freedom. She was a philosopher who believed that the human mind was a tool for understanding the universe and connecting with the divine. In a time when faith was increasingly being put forward as the only path to truth, Hypatia stood as a powerful reminder of the enduring power and beauty of reason. Science and Spirit: Hypatia's contributions to astronomy and math. When we think of ancient philosophers, we often imagine them sitting in a toga, pondering abstract questions about truth and justice. But Hypatia of Alexandria was a different breed. She was a hands-on intellectual, a true polymath who saw no divide between the abstract world of philosophy and the concrete world of science. She was a geometer, an astronomer, and a mathematician who believed that the secrets of the universe could be unlocked with numbers and observation. Hypatia's most significant contributions were in the field of astronomy. She was a master of the astrolabe, a complex instrument used to measure the position of the stars and planets. Her students' letters speak of her expertise in constructing and using this device, and she is credited with inventing a specialized hydroscope for measuring the density of liquids. This wasn't just theoretical work. It was practical, applied science. She was using mathematics and technology to better understand the cosmos. But for Hypatia, science wasn't just cold, hard facts. It was a spiritual endeavor. She, like other Neoplatonists, believed that the universe was a reflection of the divine mind. To study the orderly movements of the planets or the elegant principles of geometry was to catch a glimpse of the mind of God. For her, astronomy wasn't just about predicting eclipses. It was a form of worship, a way of connecting with the ultimate reality. Hypatia's unique blend of science and spirit is a testament to the intellectual traditions of her time, a tradition that saw no conflict between the pursuit of empirical knowledge and the search for spiritual truth. She was a scientist who saw the divine in the elegance of a mathematical equation, and a philosopher who saw the divine in the movements of the stars.
Murder in the library. The martyrdom of Hypatia. The story of Hypatia's death is a horrific, brutal, and unforgettable tragedy that has echoed through the centuries. It wasn't a quiet passing or a peaceful end. It was a public, violent murder at the hands of a Christian mob, a shocking act that has become a symbol of intolerance and the clash of civilizations. By the year 415, the political and religious tensions in Alexandria had reached a boiling point. The city's Christian patriarch, Cyril, was engaged in a power struggle with the Roman prefect, Orestes. Hypatia, as a prominent public figure and a close friend of Orestes, was caught in the middle. She was a pagan woman who embodied the intellectual traditions that Cyril saw as a threat to his authority and to the growing power of the Church. The details of the murder are gruesome. A Christian mob, led by a man named Peter, dragged her from her chariot. They stripped her, tore her flesh from her bones with oyster shells, and then burned her remains. It was a savage and ritualistic killing, a message to anyone who dared to stand in the way of the new order. The mob wasn't just killing a woman, they were trying to kill an idea. They were trying to extinguish the light of reason, the symbol of the ancient world that she represented. Hypatia's death marked a turning point. It wasn't just the end of a brilliant life. It was, in many ways, the end of an era. With her death, the intellectual life of Alexandria, which had been slowly fading, came to a grinding halt. The great library had already been destroyed, and with the murder of its last great thinker, the city's role as the intellectual center of the world was over. Her martyrdom is a somber reminder of what happens when reason is sacrificed on the altar of fanaticism. Hypatia and the silencing of ancient knowledge. Hypatia's story is not just a tale of personal tragedy. It is a profound metaphor for the silencing of ancient knowledge. Her murder was a symbolic act, a violent punctuation mark at the end of the classical era and the beginning of the so-called Dark Ages. The men who killed her weren't just killing a woman. They were attempting to destroy a way of thinking, a tradition of intellectual inquiry that had defined the Western world for centuries. The knowledge that was silenced wasn't just philosophical. It was scientific, mathematical, and historical. The great library of Alexandria, with its countless scrolls and its vast repository of human wisdom, had already been destroyed. But the intellectual spirit of the city lived on in people like Hypatia. When she was murdered, that spirit was finally snuffed out. The schools closed, the scholars fled, and the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake became a dangerous and often deadly endeavor. The loss of Hypatia's own writings is perhaps the most tragic symbol of this silencing. The commentaries she wrote on Diophantus and Ptolemy, which would have given us invaluable insights into the state of ancient mathematics and astronomy, are gone forever. We are left with only echoes of her brilliance, whispers of a mind that was far ahead of her time. The knowledge she created and preserved was lost to history, and the world had to wait centuries to rediscover what she had already known. Hypatia's story is a stark reminder of the fragility of knowledge and the dangers of intellectual intolerance. It shows us what happens when a society values faith over reason, dogma over inquiry, and power over truth. It is a cautionary tale that echoes through the ages, reminding us that the light of knowledge is a precious and delicate thing that must be fiercely protected, lest it be extinguished forever.